Hello, my name is Rich Howard, owner of Architectural Builder Supply, and this video is to bring you a closer look at the Bommer number 2990-632. This is an order for, this client ordered two each. Wooden storm, well, I'm sure they're wooden. I'm not sure, but I imagine they are. Wooden storm door hinges is what these are. Client ordered two of them. And here's what it all looks like. Take a closer look. So the 2990 is literally representative of a half surface spring hinge. Okay. Half surface. What that means is that when the hinge is installed, the leaf that goes to the door is the surface mounted leaf. You can do full mortise. That means both leaves are mortised. You can do half surface. Door leaf is surface mounted. You can do half mortise. Door leaf is mortised. And by definitions of half surface or half mortise, whatever you do to the door, in this instance half surface, that means that the other leaf is mortised. Okay, so if I said a half surface hinge, you know that there'll be a leaf on the face of the door, like is shown here, but then the other leaf is going to be mortised to the jamb. And a leaf like this is generally not mortised, but it certainly ought to be. In my opinion, it ought to be. But you'll very commonly see these surface mounted as well because they're very thin leaves. And wooden storm doors, they're not machined, or I should say planed, to very tight tolerances. You could have 1/8 of an inch on either side, 1/4 inch, whatever the case is. It's a wooden storm door is generally where you will see these. Now, the 2990 also means a couple of other things, and let's take a closer look at it. The 2990 is a non-handed, can be installed either way for either hand of door. Half surface, we've talked about that, and adjustable tension with a what would be called a button tip on there as well. So this is adjustable tension with a button tip. Now, Bommer has other series that are non-adjustable tension, along with a loose pin is what they call it, I believe. Yes, loose pin. So you could do a half surface with a loose pin. That would be non-adjustable. And there is a 29. So there is a, and I don't keep these part numbers memorized. I'm going to pull that document down so I can see it. You've got a half surface available as a 2930 that will not have a button tip like this or look finished. It will just literally have a piece of wire, a pin sticking in there. But that is an adjustable tip. You can also do a 20, and that's a 2930 if I hadn't said that. A 2970 is a non-adjustable loose pin, and then the 2990 is the button tip with an adjustable spring tension. Why someone would choose the loose pin or the non-adjustable? Maybe cost. You know, I don't know why someone would elect to not be able to adjust the spring tension on a spring hinge, or to not have a finished look. It could be cost. I guess if you need to order 100 of these, yeah, that marginal difference between a button tip and a loose pin would, I suppose, be something worth looking at. There is a link below this video to a document called Product Brochure, where you'll be able to study the differences on those items from this manufacturer. Made of steel and polished brass. Definitely made of steel. And that's where the 632 part of the part number comes in. That means polished brass over steel. So if this was 605, it would mean polished brass, but that it was made of brass. These hinges aren't made out of brass. They're not offered that way. But so that's why we call it 632, because it means polished brass, but that it's made of steel. 2 3/4 is the size, and maximum door weight is 50 pounds for 3 hinges. And you're going to get some screws with it, which we'll go over. Take a look at the link below this video to the template, and you can go over the dimensional properties, and we'll touch on them quickly. That's where the 2 3/4 comes in. Okay, you can see that it's 3 3/8 overall height. Closer to 3.5, I would say. Now, this is non-handed. Let's talk about installing this. It's non-handed. You can install it for a left-hand door, or a left-hand door, You can install it for a right-hand door. Factory doesn't care. The only difference is the orientation of your tension collar is going to be up for a left hand, and it will be pointed towards the bottom of the door for a right hand. Has no bearing at all on the function of the hinge, but it does have a bearing on how you set the tension, which we'll get to. Installing this item, it's very likely you're replacing existing. If you're not, let's talk about installing these. That leaf thickness is 0.65, so it's a 1/16 of an inch. Whether or not you try to mortise a 1/16 of an inch will be up to you. If it was me, I would mortise it. I would do it with a router, and taking off a 1/16 of an inch with a router is flaky at best. Doing it with a hammer and chisel is going to be far worse. But I would like to have that recessed flush if I was doing the work myself. However, I think the majority of times you'll find it surface mounted is the bottom line. Now to continue with the installation, 3 hinges rated for 50 pounds, that's a really heavy storm door. We generally will only sell these in multiples of 2 because that's really all that's required. You've got literally a 30-pound door. And, where you're going to place this top to bottom, I would personally be somewhere within, 5 inches down to 8 inches. And I would probably mimic that from the bottom, and I might adjust it ever so slightly for any undercut so that looks symmetrical, top and bottom. If you're going to add a third hinge, you'll put it in the middle of the door is where you would put it. If you were in a situation where you were exceeding the weight capacity of 3 hinges, you'd put 2 at the top, certainly, because the top hinge really, its primary job in life is to carry the weight of the door, and in fact 70% of the weight of the door is borne by that top hinge. That renders the ability of a spring hinge to do its job less effective, so that's why you'll commonly see 2 spring hinges up at the top when you've got actual heavy doors, but you're doing a storm door. Top bottom or top middle bottom is going to be considered quite typical. Okay, this leaf is going to be surface mounted to the face, right to the face of the door. If I'm installing these, I'm going to get my hinge leaf attached to the jamb. I'm going to open up my leaves. I'm going to get my door in position and get it shimmed. Okay, I'm then going to bring my leaf down to a point, where I'm just going to mark my holes, pre-drill my holes, and install my screws. There is really not a concept of inset. You're going to bring your hinge leaf right to the face of your hinge, is what you're going to do. And then whatever margin is going to be between the edge of the door and the hinge leaf is what you're going to have in place, because you'll have had it shimmed. Shim at the bottom, shim it on either sides. Make sure your top margin is correct as a result of your shimming. Mark your holes, and there you're done. What I did, you may not have noticed it, but what I did first was I removed the tension that was set on the tension collar. The tension pin was already installed in the hinge. Well, I removed it first because I wanted to freely show you the hinge leaf. Well, I've put it back in place. Your hinge will have the tension pin already installed almost always with the 2990 hinge. If it doesn't, they'll be in a package in the box with the hinges, the screws, and your tension rod. That's a tension rod. That's a tension pin. For every hinge that you buy of a 2990, you'll get 1 tension pin. For every order that you place, you'll get at least 1 tension rod. You may not get more than 1 for 2 hinges, but you'll get at least 1. You only need 1. To set the tension, your door is shimmed, you've pre-drilled your holes, you've attached your door. Now your door swings. Great, let's put some tension on it. If it's going to be a left-hand door, your tension collar is going to be pointed towards the top of the door, and you'll insert your tension rod, and here's the difference between tension collar down or tension collar up. You rotate this clockwise to increase tension, or it's naturally counterclockwise. That's the only difference. You want to increase some tension, rotate it clockwise, pull that pin out. Be careful, there's spring action happening. Place it into the next hole. Now we've got more tension. If I do it again, I'm going to have more tension. Set it one tension spot, just one. Test it. I might look to, you got a lightweight door, so I would probably seek to make them equal and balanced. If I was going to try to put more tension on a hinge, I might look to do it on the bottom hinge or the middle hinge rather than the top, just because it's hanging the door as well. But again, marginal weight. Do not set this to any more than 3 holes of tension. That's probably indicated nowhere in the paperwork. 3 holes would be typical for a light-duty hinge, relatively light-duty like this. If you hear the spring in the back creaking or making sounds, stop. That's too much. You can actually force that if you were to set it high enough to have the spring slip out of its connecting point to the hinge leaf. And people have called and said, yeah, the hinge broke. The hinge you sent me broke. I heard it snap. Okay, spring broke or spring popped out. How many hinges? How heavy is the door? What's the size? Great. Okay, well, that's all good. How many holes of tension did you set? 8 or 9? That's why it broke. You've got stored tension, but when I open that door to 90, and I can't with 3 holes of tension, you're really adding to it. And you let that, you get that out that far, and that's where it's going to snap. So 2 or 3 holes of tension is probably all that you'll need on this. Okay. It does come with screws. It's going to be all wood screws. This client ordered 2 hinges, so there are 2 packs of screws. It looks like a number, well, I don't have to guess. They say it's a number 7 by 3/4. It is in a complementary finish. Sold per hinge. When you buy 1 hinge, we're going to sell you 1 hinge. There might be 2 in a box, but that's not how they're sold in terms of a unit of measure. That's just packaging. The nice thing about that is if you needed 3 hinges, we're not going to force you to buy 2 or 4. In terms of the finishes, this can be done in lots of different finishes by Bommer, over steel, your brass, your bronze, your chrome, your nickel, oil rubbed, satin and polished, all of those finishes. You can do prime coat. You can do zinc plated. You can do bright black japanned on these hinges as well. So be mindful that Bommer can accommodate finishes. The 632 in the part number does indeed specifically mean polished brass. Finally, there is a link below this video to the manufacturer's page where you can pull up not only all of the Bommer products that we sell, but also a link to the manufacturer's website, as well as a link to the full product catalog. Any questions on the Bommer $29.90 and a 632 finish, or any other Bommer product, please feel free to reach out to us. And thank you.